So, we're going to talk about how to end our school year in a way that's going to make it so much easier for us in our next school year to be able to utilize all of the items that we've already created. So, I've gone up to my courses and I'm actually inside of my social studies course. And so, just like the courses that you've created throughout the year, you have all your materials laid out, first quarter, second quarter, all of those kinds of things already created. And so we want you to be able to use those from year to year, certainly tweak them any way you want. And so that's what we're going to kind of cover today. What's the best way to wrap up your year so that it's going to be so much easier for you in the coming year? So one of the things I actually would have you do is I would have you jump to your resources first. So that's what I'm going to do in the upper center of my screen. I'm going to jump to my personal resources, which is a reminder is our online filing cabinet for Schoology. And I have created, everyone has homes, probably learning objectives, downloads, and public. I've actually created some other folders to organize my materials. And one of the folders that I've created, they call it a collection in Schoology. We just come here by clicking on this file box and say add a collection, and we can name it anything we want. And one of the ones that I've created is Master Course Backup. Obviously, everything is automatically saved in Schoology. However, if I create this folder, I can save any and all courses that I want to use and reuse again, or maybe that I'm even creating or making some changes to, all in one place so that it's easier for me to find them when I need to come back to them. So that's the first thing I would ask you to do is go to your resources, go to this section where it says add a collection, create one that says, Master Course Backup, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to name it. And then we're going to go ahead and save something to there. So now we're going to hop back to our course that we want to save. And you're going to need to do this for every course that you've created, every separate course that you've created up here. So I already have it all created, and it's really simple. Before your course ends for the year, let's say that you know that your courses are going to go to archive on, let's say, June 5th. We can, and the way you can find that out is you can come under course options here, and then you can say edit info. And that's going to tell you, when you look at the grading period, that's going to tell you what the end of your grading period. For me, it's June 1st. So I've got till June 1st that I can kind of go and do this process. So you can always check that out under course options or ask your administrator. But so I have my course here. And in the center, it says options, and it's really simple. The first thing you have to do is just find save course to resources. I could click that, and then by default, it goes to our home screen. But this is where I could go and find my Master Course Backup collection that I had just created to save this into, and I can simply select that, hit submit, and now I've saved it back to my resources. So as a reminder, our courses, they have a time frame on them that they are active, and they will show up in this top center section. So they will always be in there as long as it's an active grading period. But our resources are there. There's no time limit on that. So if I save them back there, that's going to give me the opportunity to pull it back in. You can see you have a large operation. It's going to take a minute. So it's going to then go save that to my resources. So that's where I would go and find it. So in the beginning of the school year, the beginning of the next school year, if you have an SIS in your school, it's going to automatically populate your new courses for you. So this would probably say social studies. This is for a new school year, right? So I'm going to have a new group of students. I'm going to have a new grading period, those kinds of things. I just have it named new school year for example purposes. If you do not have an SIS and you manually create yours, that's where you would create your course, name it whatever it is for the new school year. So now I have my blank shell, just like we did last year. We would want to come in and we'd want to edit our picture, put a correct picture in there. We would want to bring back in the course that we had saved. So it's this simple. You can add materials, and we're going to import from resources. So rather than having to create all those materials again and again, we can import it from resources. And because I created that folder that says Master Course Backup, now all of my courses are in one place. So I need to scroll all the way to the bottom because it automatically saved things to the bottom. Now I will show you, I actually saved this November 15th. Now I have one April 26th. It's not like your computer where it overrides it or says, hey, you already have a copy. Do you want to just write over it? It just makes an additional copy. So I can always go back and clean these old ones up later, change their titles if I have it as a different version, things like that. But this is the middle school social studies course that I just saved today. Let me go ahead and click on that. So now I can see that I have all the materials that I want in there. I can do one of two things. I can actually just select the items that I want in my course for now and bring those in, or I could choose to bring everything in. And then certainly I kind of prefer that. I bring everything in, and then I can always make inactive or unpublished the items that I'm not using yet. So we're going to go ahead and click on import. And then it's going to bring up a list of all the items inside of those folders. So I can actually choose if I want that item this year or I don't want that. I can certainly choose to omit things that are no longer current, and I can choose to import. So when I import it into my new course, what you'll see is a couple really cool things. It actually lays the course out exactly the way that I did before. Certainly, if I'm not going to be using second, third, and fourth quarter, I can come to my gear wheel, which is my master control, and just simply unpublish that for the time being until I'm ready for those quarters or units or whatever I have to be published. And as a reminder, if I have units inside and other folders inside, it hides everything inside of that folder. I could also go to first quarter, and maybe I'm only going to do unit 1 now, so I could go and unpublish unit 2 until I'm ready for my students to see that. So I, as an instructor, can see it. I can always go in these folders, and I can always remove things, edit them, whatever I need to do. But now I'm ready for the new school year. So that's really fantastic. Another tip is, too, when you come back to that new school year, as a reminder, we can come into our grade book. We could come into our grade setup, and that's where we would need to create our categories. So again, just like you did last year, we're going to say homework, we're going to say test, quiz, whatever categories you used previously, you will have to put those categories back in there. If you used rubrics before, if they had rubrics attached to those assignments when you brought them back in, it will pull them in. But as a reminder, if you had not used rubrics, that's also another reminder in our resources that you can always have a rubrics folder where you keep all your master rubrics. And I could choose to select these all or some of them, and I can add them to that specific course. So there's a lot of things you can do when you bring it back in for the new school year. The last really good tip I'd like to give you on when you bring these back in for a new school year, we know there's a lot of assignments in here. And rather than coming in and look through each unit and then re-giving new dates, coming back into each assignment, making sure I'm giving it a category and a date and those kinds of things individually. Once I've created my categories, the really quick way to do that is actually to come to your grade book. So if you go to your grade book, and then the 3 dots in the upper right are like your gear wheel. If I come in here and I say bulk edit, a really cool tip is all of the interactive pieces, assignments, discussions, tests, and quizzes that you have put into the system are now going to show up in this bulk edit. The ones that are visible already have a checkbox. If I needed to make something visible, I could just check it. And now I could come in here and I could give it a category and I could give it a due date. So let's say this is going to be 8/23/17. So I can give it a due date, and I could go through and do that through all of these assignments. Even if I don't want to make them published yet, I could give them categories and due dates so that when I'm ready to publish them, all I have to do is publish that assignment. So I could do all that if I'm mapping out my calendar at any time, either at the beginning of the year, anytime throughout the year. I can come into this bulk edit section and I can assign those categories and I can assign those due dates. And then you want to make sure you scroll all the way down and save changes. And so that way when I do that, if I go back to my course, you can see that they automatically show up in the calendar. Those items that were not visible, that maybe I gave a due date, they still remain in their folder. And then when I'm ready to make it published, I can just come here and I can publish it. Or I'd have to go to one that's unpublished because that one was published. So I could come in and I can say, hey, I want you to, I can edit that and I can make it published by the folder. Okay, so I could come into that folder and I could publish this folder, or I could do it through the bulk edit in my gradebook. So again, anytime you have a course, you can, when it's completed, it's what you want, you can always save it to resources and it saves it back here. Then in the new school year, you can come back and import from resources. You can go to wherever you save the course. And again, in my case, my recommendation is to save it to one place back there. And then you can bring all those materials to use back in for each new school year. And that's going to make your life a lot easier. Now, one tip is what happens if I have forgot to save it back to resources before it goes away from my screen. Remember, all my courses are in here as long as they're active. But if they're no longer active, they go into what Schoology calls an archive. So if you do no longer see your course up in the active courses, don't fear, it's still there. You actually just need to choose courses and go to the bottom right and it will say see all. And as you see, it pops up and gives me a hint that says see all courses. So what's going to happen is, here's all my live current courses, and then if something has gone into archive because it's no longer in a current grading period, I can see this archive button, and I can select that. And any of the previous courses that I've taught, it will show me the school year, and it will show me the dates, and I can, or this would actually be the section underneath it in blue, and I can see all of those courses. So if I needed to go back and find one of those courses, I could go through and I could scroll through and I could find any particular course that I needed to bring back up. And so when I did that, I could actually just click on the section. Mine says Aiken, but I could click on the section number and that brings that entire course back up. So you can now see, here's that options button, and I can still save that to my resources. So again, if a course does not show up as an active course, it's gone to archive already, don't fear, it's still there. Go to see all. These are my current courses, but here are my archived courses. So in archive, you can do one of two things. I could go into any of those particular archive courses, like my English Lit course, and I could select the section. And now I could still save it back to resources so that I could copy it back into my course. And the other benefit in the archived is I could still, if I needed to go back and look at student work, I needed to look at grades, I can still access that from the archive section. And I can see grades, I can look at all grading periods, I can pull up materials, work, things like that. So we can always do that in any of these areas through saving things to our courses, to our resources and bringing them back in. And we can always access previous courses by going to see all and going to archive. But that's a great way to finish off your year and help you start off the new school year in a great way. I hope that you have a great end of the school year. And as you come back in with the new school year, revisit this video and it'll help you start off your school year in a quick and easy fashion. You can always edit things once they're in here. And as a reminder, even when your courses are in your resources, even when they are in that master course backup, you still have access to that entire course. So if you wanted to go in, though it's a little more cumbersome in your resources to do that. But if you wanted to go in and edit or add things into your course while it's in your resources, things like that, you can certainly do that. So again, have a great end of the school year and a great new school year by remembering how to use and reuse your resources.